Hello everyone, welcome to this channel. Today we are going to see state of transactions in DBMS. We have already seen the concept of transaction, right, in the previous video. So please watch that video before watching this video, right. Now here, state transition diagram of a transaction shows how a transaction moves through its execution state. So basically here it is telling us what? Here, how your transaction is going to move from one state to another. This is shown in a transition diagram in the next slide. So basically, what all are the states of transactions over here? First one is active, partially committed, then committed, failed, and aborted. Let's see this one by one. First, see transition diagram. This is what called as transition diagram. Here you can see there are 5 states of your transition diagram. Active, partially committed and committed. Active, partially committed, failed and aborted. Active and failed. Okay, and then aborted. This is what the flow of your execution of your transaction. Okay, next. State of transactions are active state, also called as initial state. A transaction is active when it is executing. It remains in active state till all commands of the transactions are executed. Okay. So basically, what is an active state? It is nothing but the initial state of your transaction. Right. Initial state of your transaction. We say that transactions are in active state unless it is executing. जब तक आपका ट्रांजैक्शन एग्जीक्यूट हो रहा है तब तक वो कौन से स्टेट में है? वो एक्टिव स्टेट में है. ओके, दिस इज व्हाट द एग्जांपल ऑफ ट्रांजैक्शंस बीइंग हैंड. ओके, so this is what the example, and here you can see this is the active state. This is what the active state. Since the instructions of the transactions are being executed, that's why here we say it is in the active state. Remember, this enters in the partial committed state. Your last line, and just show you in the next slide what is the meaning of partially committed. When a transaction completes its last statement or the command, it enters in partially committed state. So here I said you that this is the last command of the transaction. This is the last instruction of the transaction. That's why here we say what? The transactions have entered into the partially committed state. Okay, next, committed. When the transaction completes its execution and reflects all changes into database successfully, right? It enters committed state from partially committed state. Okay, committed में क्या होता है कि whatever instructions have been executed by the transaction, all the changes have been reflected into the database. All the changes have been reflected into the database. Then we say what? The transactions have entered from partially committed to the committed state. Okay. Next is what? Failed. If normal execution of transaction can no longer proceed, then transaction is termed as failed. If some failure occurs in active state or partially committed state, transaction enters in failed state. Likewise here, see this example, see this diagram. Here, partially committed, after partially committed, it enters into the failed state. That means what? A normal execution of your transaction is no longer taking place. That's why it is important to enter into the failed state, right? So this is what the concept of failed state. Next is what? Aborted. To ensure that atomicity property changes made by failed transactions are undone, that is, the transaction is rolled back. After rollback, the transaction enters into the aborted state, right? So this is what the concept of aborted state. Once the transaction is failed, and to ensure the atomicity property, whatever the changes made by the failed transactions need to be undone. That's why the transaction need to be rolled back. Rolled back. And aborted means what? Nothing is visible. Whatever changes were made by the transaction that need to be undone. Okay. That's why here, after rollback, the transaction is entering into the aborted state. So these are the 5 states of your transaction, and it is illustrated with the help of this state transition diagram. Okay. So I hope it is clear to everyone. If you are having any doubt, feel free to message me in the comment section, and thank you for watching this video.